Okay, so we are trying to do a water pump on this Range Rover, which sucks. And so I'm going to take a break because I don't have all the parts for it anyway. And we're going to play with something a bit more fun. This is a 1962 Austin Healey 3000. The overdrive on it is not working. The switch doesn't always get it into overdrive, and then even if it does go into overdrive, it drops back out. And so first thing is first, just make sure that the fluid is topped off in the gearbox. If the fluid's low, the overdrive's not going to function properly. But after that, which we've already done, now you're looking at something is wrong. So hopefully it's as simple as an adjustment. If it's not, we're going to have to hook up a pressure gauge and see what's going on. Let's see what we find out. Okay, so first thing we're going to have to do is take out this transmission tunnel. It's a little bit easier in the earlier Healeys than in the late ones because you've got the center console and everything. But basically, just unsnap the carpet, pull this out. I'm not going to show it on camera because I'm frankly just going to be in the way of the camera, but let's come back when I get this out. It shouldn't take more than a minute or two.
Okay, you want to pull the carpet out of the way so that you can access the transmission tunnel. And then down in here, there's a few screws. You probably can't see them. There you go, there's one of them right in the middle. There's a few screws that just go around the outside. Undo those and you'll be able to pull the tunnel out. A quick note, this is the speedometer cable that you see there. That goes through a hole in the transmission tunnel, so just make sure that you unscrew that from the back of the speedometer. It's just hand tight and thread it into the back of the speedometer. It should be easy to do. And then the other thing is the gear shift knob. Also make sure that that's unscrewed, and once it is, you should be able to get underneath it and just sort of, there you go, you can see it moving. Lift off the transmission. There we go. You might have to move the transmission tunnel around the handbrake lever. It's a little bit finicky, just kind of twist it around. But then outside of that, here is the gearbox, and we want to focus here. Okay, an Austin Healey 3000 is going to have an A-type overdrive. The solenoid's on the other side, which is, I guess, kind of unique to the A-drive. Usually the solenoid operates directly on this. But anyway, on this one there's a rod coming through. Here's the end of it, and it operates on this lever. So when the solenoid activates, that's what it's doing. We're going to turn it on and make sure that it's adjusted properly. This has a little cam, and it moves up a valve in here. That's the operating valve. And it changes where the hydraulic fluid is directed. So it's either directed to just kind of recirculate, or to press against the springs, which are in here, to press against them and shift it so that the overdrive engages. Anyway, basically just moving hydraulic fluid from direction A to direction B is what's happening in here. But it depends on this going exactly the correct amount. And so that's what we're going to be doing. The way that you do it is you get a piece of 3/16 inch rod, or if you don't happen to have that, drill bit, 3/16 inch drill bit. And what we're going to do, you'll notice it conveniently fits right in there. If it's engaging the correct amount, if it's engaging the correct amount, it will also go into the gearbox, and then it's going to fit properly. If it's not, then that means it's either engaging too much or not enough. So what we need to do is turn on the solenoid, and in theory, once it's on, we should be able to take this drill bit, put it directly in, and it'll engage with the transmission as well. Okay, I've cheated. I've got a 12-volt power source, but if you don't, just put the car in third or fourth gear, turn the ignition to the on position. You don't have to have the engine running, and flip the overdrive switch. What should happen is this. And now you can take your drill bit, and you should be able to go in, and I think we found the problem. You see, the drill bit can go in, but only if we move it slightly further. So my guess is that it's not set up to engage 100% of the way, and that's where our problem is. Okay, now we're back on the solenoid side, and if you can see, there are 6 screws. I can get at most of these. That one down at the bottom is a little bit difficult to get at in the Healey, but that's okay. I think if I could just get it cracked a little bit loose, I could just swivel the plate out of the way. and the adjustment will be inside there. Now if it's not turning on at all, and you don't see a click, then your problem is the solenoid itself, which really is pretty easy to change. It's just 2 screws that hold the thing in, and so yeah, that's pretty much all you'll need. You'll have to readjust it after that. It's the same procedure, and then it's worth noting that any A-type overdrive is going to be exactly the same. Doesn't matter if it's in a Healey or a Ferrari or a Triumph, it's all going to be the same procedure to adjust this. Alright, if you're having trouble reaching the screws, a pair of vice grips comes in very handy. Just do it once or twice to loosen it, and then you can go in later with a pair of needle nose pliers. Alright, now this is actually easier to do with the gearbox out of the car because you don't have to go through all this crap to get to it. But anyway, here's the adjustment. You want to loosen this nut right here. See, here's the shaft that goes through that I've got on the screwdriver right now. And when the solenoid operates, here's what it looks like. There, you see it operating on that rod. It's being held up in place. And so what we need to do is loosen this, turn on the solenoid, put our rod where we want it, and then tighten it back down in that position. Just a quick tip, if you have points that you are running in your car and you don't have an electronic ignition like a XR700 or something, you can burn out the points, coil, condenser. You can do some damage to the ignition by leaving it on. So don't do that. What you want to do is disconnect your ignition. Take the wiring off of that so that you're not charging your coil, because you are going to have to leave it in the on position for a little bit. If you're using a power source like I am, you don't have to worry about that. Just turn the solenoid on. It'll be fine. Leave it on as long as you need. These shouldn't burn out. It's meant to handle that sort of current kind of continuously. So there we go. Anyway, loosen that. Turn on the solenoid. Go over to where we did the adjustment before, put that 3/16" rod in, hold it in place, retighten, and then we should be good to go. Double check it while it's tight, make sure that it works, and then go for a drive. Alright, I can operate the rod independently. That's what I want. So now we're going to flip on the solenoid. I'm going to go stick in my 3/16" drill bit so that we put the rod where it needs to be, and I'm going to tighten it back down. Another nut that's at the top, and you might have to get 2 wrenches on, but sometimes you can, oh, there we go, sometimes you can finagle it just by moving the one on the bottom. If we've done everything correctly, the operating levers move back to the left. So if we've done everything correctly, we've got it tightened appropriately, we should be able to turn on a power. The solenoid will operate, it will force this lever forward, and we should be able to get our drill bit back in. Now just to double check, when we turn the power off to the solenoid, the operating lever shouldn't move. There we go. So it's actually in. Take the drill bit out and it should move back to where it was. Double check. There we go. Now we need to put the tunnel back in and go for a test drive. The next step, by the way, this bolt sits on the top of the operating lever. There is a pressure gauge that you can buy. I'll put a link in the description below. There's a pressure gauge that you can buy for A, and I think it works for D-type overdrives as well. Same gauge. There's a different one for J, and anyway, you can get them all from the same link, but you would want to plug in the pressure gauge here and go for a drive, and either have a camera sitting on it or have a passenger watching pressure numbers. You'll want to note what the pressure is at before you go into overdrive, as well as what happens when you hit the overdrive switch. How does it change? And that's going to give you information about what's going on internally. So is it a problem with the accumulator? Is it the pump is having some issues? So it'll point you to some things. Unfortunately, the only thing that you're going to be able to do is pull the transmission. You're going to have to take apart the overdrive to go further than that. But before you strip it down, you'll at least have an idea of what needs to be done in advance. There are a few things. If you take this out, there is a spring and a ball bearing in there. Sometimes the ball bearing doesn't seat properly, and so you could take it out, take out the valve. The valve should just pull out from the top with a pair of pliers. Tap the ball bearing into the operating rod with the hammer. Just give it a sharp whack, not too hard, you don't want to destroy it, but give it a tap. That'll help it to reseat. Shouldn't really be necessary after a rebuild, but hey, you know what? Sometimes a little thing like that will fix it. Outside of that, just make sure everything's clean. Make sure the operating rod's actually moving up and down appropriately. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So we're going to go for a drive. I think that our solenoid was simply out of adjustment, wasn't moving far enough. But now, as you can see, it is. Okay guys, that's all I've got for you today. It was a quick one. I need to put the interior back in, obviously, then I'm going to go for a drive. Assuming it works, you can look forward to some videos of me just driving around the Healey, because who doesn't want to see that? So anyway, if you've got questions, post them in the comments below. Otherwise, like, subscribe, hit the bell thingy. You get the idea. I'll see you guys next time.